Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And a big thank you to Polanglo for putting this event together and bringing us together today. My name is Akis Panayi. I come from Cyprus. I'm a teacher trainer for Hamilton House. I'm an examiner for Cambridge qualifications, for those of you who do Cambridge exams, A1 to C2, and Cambridge International Education, for those who are familiar with the IGCSEs, First Language English and English as a Second Language. Okay. For this session, we are going to be talking about differentiation strategies in order to meet all of our learners' needs. And the title that I have chosen is One Size Does Not Fit All. And you can see the picture with the three children struggling to enter clothes that do not fit them, or they're too big. Okay. At the end of this session, we will be able to answer the following questions. What is differentiation? Why do we need as teachers to differentiate? What are the benefits of differentiation? And what strategies can we apply to improve our teaching practice further? And we're going to look at some examples from how we can adapt exercises from Ultimate English. But not only. Okay, let's start with the first activity. As this session falls under the umbrella of the workshop, I would like to ask for your participation as much as you can. We have 5 activities to do, 5 activities. This is the first one, activity 1. What is differentiation? Looking at the cartoon and the word differentiation, that has its root in the word different. What could be a definition of the term differentiation? The cartoon says there's a teacher here and the students, and the teacher says for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Who can give us a brief definition or some key words that are associated with differentiation? What could it be? Adjustment, thank you very much. Adjusting the delivery of the lesson and the material that we use. Perfect, thank you. Anything else? Students, special needs, or different needs. Different students have different needs. Thank you, miss. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Capabilities. Personal. Yes, yes. Each student is different. They're able for different things. So different abilities. Okay. Thank you very much. The definition of differentiation is the process by which differences, there you go, between learners are accommodated by who? By the teacher, so that all students in a group have the best possible chance of learning. Terry, in his presentation before, he was talking about about the importance of being inclusive as teachers, to include everyone in the lesson so that they all learn and they get the best possible chance of learning the information that we are teaching. And it's all about supporting. It's all about supporting the less able ones. Everyone here, I'm sure, in your classes, you do have your less able students, your more able ones, the most able students. Yeah, differentiation is all about supporting the less able, but at the same time challenging the more able ones, because we don't want to put them on the side. Yeah, we also want to challenge them so that they get as far as possible. Sometimes when I differentiate in my lesson and I give some extra help to the less able students, I get some complaints from my more able students saying, why are you helping them more, sir? That's not fair. Well, I say that what you really want to say is that that's not equal, yeah? But equal doesn't necessarily mean fair. Because if this is equal, all three people here, they get the same amount of help and support in order to watch the match, yeah? But this person can see this is fair. They all get the same chance to watch the game. Okay, as with all teaching approaches, as with all approaches to teaching and learning, there is a debate going on about differentiation between scholars, educators, researchers, psychologists, I'm going to show you now what some experts say about differentiation, arguing for and against the approach of differentiation in the classroom. And then at the end, we're going to do some self-reflection and see where we stand as teachers. So the two men on the slide argue against differentiation, and the two ladies argue in favor of differentiation. And they say the following. Daniel Willingham here, psychologist, has said that differentiation increases teacher workload without strong evidence of impact. On the other hand, Carol Ann Tomlinson, educator and author, said that differentiation is not about creating multiple lesson plans, but about flexible adjustment based on readiness, interest, and need. I think our colleague here mentioned the word adjustment. Then Robert Slavin, education researcher, said that differentiation can lower expectations and reinforce fixed ability thinking. And Carol Dweck, psychologist, replies that non-differentiation is what truly lowers expectations because it ignores barriers that prevent some students from accessing high-quality content. Now, bear in mind, keep in mind what these experts have said, and we're going to come back to them. Keep this information in mind as we go through the presentation. Okay. Teachers can differentiate the content of the lesson, the process of the lesson, and the product of the lesson. According to their students' skill level of ability, that our colleague said before, their learning profile with their different needs and interests, and their interests. Activity 2, group matching. On the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to show you some methods that we can use in order to differentiate. And on the right-hand side, the explanations. Let's put them together. Let's match the methods to their explanation. We can differentiate by task. What does that mean? There's a keyword in there. Anyone? B, thank you, B. Okay, let's check. B, perfect. Different tasks for students of different abilities. We're going to look at examples of that. What about the other one? Differentiation by grouping. A, thank you. Collaborative learning through effective grouping. Well, what does effective grouping mean? When we say effective grouping, we usually mean putting students with different abilities together in a group to work together in a strategic exercise that we have set up for them. So a less able student with a more able one. What about resources? D, you said, right? Okay, thank you. Using multiple materials to approach a topic. Thank you. Pace. C, the time that we have available can be used flexibly. If we teach a lesson, if we have 40 minutes in front of us to do a lesson, we would do things differently than if we had an hour and a half. Yeah, we would adjust the pace. What about outcome? F, thank you. All students undertake the same task, but a variety of results is expected and acceptable. And so the last one, a differentiation by assessment. Students are assessed on an ongoing basis so that teaching can be continuously adjusted according to their needs. And we're going to look at some examples. As teachers, as English teachers, language teachers, we are lucky to have a variety of material, a variety of methods that we can use to assess students. We can assess them in speaking, reading, writing, listening. We can use different methods to assess speaking, for example. We can do it on a one-on-one basis, or we can assess a group presentation that we assigned for them to do, or a class debate. We can also assess them in language systems like grammar, vocabulary, and so on and so forth. Now, because of timing, we can't look at all the methods of differentiation. We're going to focus on the first one, task, and the last one, assessment, and look at some examples. Okay, differentiation by task. As we said, it involves setting different tasks for students of different abilities. The teacher can produce different sets of worksheets or exercises depending on students' abilities. There's no need to do that because Hamilton House books, they follow the approach and the philosophy of differentiation, and there are different tasks here for students with different abilities, and I'm going to show you an example later. Alternatively, we can use a single worksheet comprised of tasks which get progressively harder, and I really like that one. Let's look at an example. Has anyone ever used the Chili's method to set tasks? It's just a method, it's just an approach that we can use in order to set mild tasks, medium hot tasks, and extra hot, which is the most challenging task. For example, let's take the scenario of teaching the passive voice to a B1 level class. And we are doing the passive voice. We have taught the passive voice, we explained it, we went over the structure of the passive voice so the students know how to complete exercises and use the passive voice. And now we want to set tasks. A mild task, a mild exercise for our less able students could be to rewrite these sentences in the passive voice. And we give them the sentence in the active voice, and they have to turn it to passive. This is something that everyone should be able to do. For our more able students, a medium hot task could be to read a report about a school event and rewrite only the sentences that should logically be in the passive voice. So here, they have to think a bit more. They have to analyze the use of the passive voice. We use the passive voice in order to sound more formal. Yeah. So here they read a report, which is all in the active voice, and they have to decide which sentences should be rewritten in the passive. So there's an extra challenge. And for our most able students, the extra hot task, write a report about a school event, include at least 5 passive voice sentences, at least 1 must be in the future passives. So there is an extra challenge for them. Bless you. And it's the same in the B1 Ultimate Grammar book. It uses the same philosophy. So in Unit 10, the students are introduced to the passive voice. And let's look at an example of a mild task, which is number 2. It says, complete. Use the passive voice. So they are given the sentences here, they are given the verb that they have to use, and they have to put it in the passive voice. The medium task comes in number 5. Rewrite the sentences in the passive, include the agent only when necessary. So here they have to think and decide where to use the agent and where it isn't necessary. And the extra hot task is the last one, read and write sentences, and they're given a painting, and they have to write sentences about the painting. So they have to produce the sentences themselves. All these leveled tasks, they have their philosophy in Bloom's taxonomy. You might remember Mr. Benjamin Bloom from university, those of you who studied language and linguistics. There you go, thank you. And his hierarchy, the framework of learning. And the framework of learning is this one here, from lower order thinking skills to the 3 higher order thinking skills. This applies to all kind of learning. When we learn new information, when we're given new information, first we must remember it, then we understand it, then we try to apply this information, to a new context. And then in the higher order thinking skills, we analyze the information, we evaluate it, and lastly, we create something new. Like with exercise 9 here, which tackles the top of the pyramid, which is the creation. The second exercise here, the mild one, which thinking skill do you think it tests? The exercise says, complete, use the passive. And students are given the sentence with gaps, and they have to fill them in with the passive voice. Applying, yeah, okay, very good, thank you very much. So lower order thinking. Our more able students should be asked questions that develop higher order thinking skills, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Our less able ones should start from here, and then we see how, where they can go. Yeah. Okay, activity 3. How many activities do we have to do? Does anyone remember? 5, yes, thank you, 5. Okay, activity 3, over to you. Now, I'm going to show you some task cards on the slide. You'll have about 8 to 10 task cards. And what I would like you to do is choose one task from the next slide and complete it. The topic is the same for everyone. The topic is differentiation and everything we have been talking about so far. Okay, let's do it. 1 minute to choose a task, 2 minutes to complete it. I'm counting. The topic is differentiation. Where it says information, somewhere here, for example, we mean differentiation. Okay. 1 minute to choose a task. Whatever you like. Everyone's thinking hard, trying to find the easiest task and the quickest and the less painful. Another 10 seconds. Now, you must have chosen a task. Can you please complete it? Come on. All right. All right, okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very sorry I have to disrupt your very insightful conversations. I could see that some were talking, others were writing, others were taking pictures. So which task have you chosen? Anyone? Yes? One, the first one, a quick conversation. Okay, and why have you chosen that? It's the easiest one for you, okay? It does not involve any writing, yeah? You just speak with someone? Great, okay. Easy to do it in these conditions, at this specific moment in time, and because we're in the mood for that. Thank you very much. Has anyone chosen to write or list three questions or write down some information? Thank you. Okay, because you like writing? You like questions, right? Thank you very much. Okay. Has anyone chosen the social media one with the picture? Okay, there you go. Right. Has anyone done the cartoon? No? At the back? You're with, okay, so that's the task that you would do because you're good at drawing?
Yeah, and imagining things.
Imagining things, okay, thank you. In the beginning, when I asked you about differentiation, different colleagues mentioned almost the same thing, different abilities and different interests. So you've all done the same, you've all worked on the same topic, differentiation and the information discussed so far in this session. But you did different tasks, you chose different tasks, because someone likes talking to people, others like writing down questions, others like developing cartoons. Yeah? But you all worked on the same thing. This is what we should be trying to do in the classroom every now and then with our students. Give them a choice of tasks. Okay. Another example of differentiation by task. We're going to look at essay writing at B2 level. Differentiation by directing students to complete different parts of a paragraph. As you can see from the picture and the arrows, all three students will get to the same point, but in different ways, yeah, using different paths. Let's see how we can do that. In one of my lessons, we read in class a text about Jack the Ripper, and I'm asking students to write an essay using information from the text, as we do. This is one of the last tasks in my lesson. I asked them to write an essay based on what we have read about Jack the Ripper. Now, how can we differentiate in order to accommodate for both the more able learners and the less able ones? What I do is the following, and you can take this idea with you and adapt it any way you like in your lessons. I put students in group, and they complete a different part of the same paragraph based upon what ability they have. I put them in groups of 4 because that's the paragraph structure that I am using. It's the peel paragraph, if you're familiar with it. Point, explanation, evidence, link. That's the paragraph structure that I'm using for an essay. You might be using a different one. There are many different structures that we can use. So it's one sentence to make a point, which is like the statement of the paragraph, the point. Explanation, evidence from the text to support it, and then link the final and more challenging sentence at the end of the paragraph. And it looks something like this. The first student, which is my less able one, writes the point, the first sentence of the paragraph. Everyone writes down the same sentence, all 4 of them. But the first student, student A, has to decide what the sentence will be. But they all write down the same thing. Student A writes the point. Student B explains the longer sentence. Student C gives evidence from the text to support the explanation of student B. And finally, student D makes the links or evaluates the identity of Jack the Ripper. And the product that they produce is the following. The first student has written, Jack the Ripper is an infamous murderer. Correct. Explanation. The second student. He was a serial killer who murdered a number of prostitutes plus one other woman in the Whitechapel area of East London. That's the explanation. The third student, who has to give evidence to support the explanation. He committed the murders between August and November 1888, and his first victim was killed at this time, Mary Ann Nichols. And the last student that makes links and evaluates the identity of Jack the Ripper is still unknown, and many films and books have been produced about this mystery, and so on and so forth. So at the end, they all have the same paragraph written in their notebook. What I do afterwards, what I usually do, is I assign homework for them, and I say, using the template, the sample paragraph that you have in your notebook, I want you to write another 2 paragraphs with the same structure at home. And in this way, they all take pride in what they have produced, because they have all worked for this. They're all watching the same baseball match from the picture in the beginning with the 3 people that were standing, but one of them needed more help in order to watch the game. They all watched the game, yeah? But with a different amount of support. Okay, enough with differentiation by task. Let's go to differentiation by assessment. As we said before, students can be assessed on an ongoing basis. Teaching can be continuously adjusted. Assessment should be flexible and must recognize the progress that students are making in the lesson. And it shifts the focus from teaching a subject to teaching the students. Let's take a scenario and let's look at formal email writing. Let's say that you have taught the conventions of formal email in your lesson, and now you want to assess your students on this writing task. This is taken from Ultimate B2, and it's Unit 6. Read the writing task, yes. Okay, so this is the task that we want to assess them on. The Board of Education plans to provide careers counseling to all school-leaving students. The board is asking students to suggest activities that would help them plan their future career. Write an email, and so on and so forth. Now, some students in our class are less able and prefer clear structure and written instructions in front of them, while others are more able and they're ready for exam tasks like this one. So, as with every class, we have our more able ones and our less able students. The question is, what do we do to differentiate, to accommodate both the less able and the more able, but at the same time, keep the cognitive demand at a high level, because we don't want to drop the standards? An idea would be the following. We can allow the less able students to have in front of them, while writing, the structure that they must follow in order to write the formal email, which comes from the book. This is the page that teaches the conventions of formal email. We have been through this with students before. So they can have in front of them the structure. Greeting, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, everything that they are expected to do. And also, we can allow them to have a list of phrases that they can use in their formal email, which again is right here in the language checklist. Phrases that they can use to give reasons, state opinion, make suggestions, and more. At the same time, we want to give the best possible chance of learning to our more able ones and support them as well and challenge them. An idea would be, when all students write their first draft and they finish with their formal email, we can ask them to highlight where they have met the success criteria in their own work. We can use the writing checklist, which is here in the book, or if you are preparing students for an exam, if you're teaching towards an exam, you can use the assessment objectives of that exam. And we can ask students to read the assessment objectives, the criteria, and highlight in their work where they have met them. For example, have you begun and ended your email appropriately? Yes. Where is it? Highlight it. Have you given your opinion? Use a different color, perhaps, to highlight. And then we can allow them to have a model answer in front of them in order to improve their first draft. We can even adapt the weight of marking. The first draft can take 25%, for example, of the final grade. The correct identification of success criteria, another 25%, and the final draft, the improved draft, can get 50%. This way, our more able students will achieve 100%. That's great, good for them. But at the same time, our less able ones will have the chance to get a very decent grade, and a good grade that they can be proud of. At the end of the day, what's the point of teaching? Not to punish students with a bad grade for something they can't do, but to award them for what they can do. And here, with this approach, we're giving them the best possible chance of learning and of getting a good grade and being proud of themselves. Right. One last example of how we can differentiate in order to assess students. What we usually do, when we read a reading passage, for example, in class, we give students the questions and we ask them to find the answers. Every now and then, it might be a good idea, instead of giving them the questions, give them the answers, and they have to come up with a question. It can be used to assess understanding and progressively harder questions for the more able students. And I'm going to do an example for you, and this is our activity 4. Let's do a recap of the topic that we have been discussing, differentiation. What question am I? There are 3 answers there. Let's think of the question. If the answer is the process by which differences between learners are accommodated so that all students have the best possible chance of learning. If that's the answer, what could be the question? What is differentiation? Very good. Thank you very much. Second one. If the answer is task, grouping, resources, pace, outcome, and assessment, what is the question? What are the methods of differentiation? Spot on. Thank you, miss. And the challenge answer at the end. It meets the needs of diverse learners. Each child is taught to their preferred learning style. It can raise the bar for all learners. It can motivate the unmotivated. What could be the question to that answer? Sorry, again? What could be the result, the outcome of differentiation? Thank you very much. What might be the benefits? Yeah, of course, there is more than one correct question. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Another 2 ways that we can differentiate, with, it's the exit ticket. Some of you might have been using the exit ticket. The idea is to give students the chance to give feedback about the lesson like 1 to 2 minutes before they leave the classroom. That's why it's called the exit ticket. It can be completed at the end of the lesson before leaving. It helps the teacher quickly check understanding and reinforce learning and guide the next lesson. You can adapt it any way you like. You can have the questions on a half an A4 paper, for example, and you will hand it out to students and they have to complete it 2 minutes before they leave the classroom. And they have to say one thing that they learned today, a word that they found interesting, maybe write 1 sentence using today's skill, let's say the passive voice. And very important, this one, if you are going to use the idea of the exit ticket, definitely include number 4, something I still don't understand. And perhaps when you unfold these exit tickets, you might see a pattern here. You might see that 5 out of 10 students wrote the same thing. So the teacher knows that, okay, so it's a good idea in my next lesson to begin by clarifying this. Another idea, last one, is the new word spotter. You can, this role can be assigned to a less able student in the classroom whose job is to identify when new words appear in the lesson, in a reading passage, for example, and highlight the words as we're reading the reading passage, and then we can discuss the words together as a group. This role can be rotated in every lesson or every week. All right. Activity 5, final activity. We have been talking about what differentiation is. Now let's look at what isn't differentiation. Complete with 1 word. Differentiation isn't having 20 different lesson plans. Differentiation isn't teaching at a gap pace so that everyone can keep up. Slow. Differentiation isn't humiliating slow learners by drawing attention to their weaknesses, needs, limitations. Thank you. Differentiation isn't allowing less able learners to gap from more able ones. Sometimes we do want them to learn from each other, don't we? So that was a trick question here. What could be the word? Copy. Thank you. Yeah. sometimes we do that because of timing, because we are busy, because the bell will ring and they will run outside the classroom and we tell them to copy from each other. Yeah, that's fine, okay, but that isn't differentiation. Same with the last one. Differentiation isn't making gap-able students to do extension tasks. I'd say more able students do extension tasks after they finish their regular work. Because they finish quickly, we give them something else to do which tests the exact same thing. So here's another passive voice exercise that tests the exact same skill. No, let's give them something that tests another thinking skill, like a higher order thinking skill, yeah, from something that they can use to analyze or create. Right, do you remember our 4 friends? Okay. Self-reflection time, just 30 seconds for you to think about what these experts have said and think, where do you stand? Is differentiation, does differentiation increase teacher workload and lower expectations? Or is it about flexible adjustment that gives access to high quality content? That's up to you to decide. Now, thank you very much for your attention and your participation to this. Thank you.